still tuned in to Salam Media, your home of humanitarian journalism. The name of the show is News and Views, and I am Salailo Makwidiri. And this hour of News and Views is proudly sponsored by African Muslims Agency. African Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities for over 35 years in Africa and beyond. And with that being said, Afghanistan remains a country in urgent need of humanitarian aid, with harsh winters and ongoing political challenges, and vulnerable communities relying on the support of organizations like the African Muslims Agency. Joining us today is Mohamed Tahir Hamid. He's the operations manager at AMA and currently on the ground in Afghanistan. Mohamed and his team are witnessing firsthand the impact of their work and the challenges faced by widows, orphans, and families during this very, very difficult season. And we'll be exploring the projects AMA has implemented in Afghanistan through the year, the current living conditions that the people of the country are facing, and how you, importantly, the listeners, can play a role when it comes to supporting their efforts. Mohammed, assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to Salelo and your respected listeners. Thank you for having.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. Mohammed, I'm not sure if this is your first trip to Afghanistan, but if it is, what were your initial impressions upon arriving in the country, and how has the experience impacted you so far? Mohammed, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I'm not sure if you got my question there.
Yes, I did. I was saying it's been an honor.
All right. It seems we're not getting Mohammed quite correctly, and I think it's understandable. He's out in Afghanistan, he's on the field, and yeah, I think we'll take a quick break, and then our
Salelo?
technicians will try and get him. Mohammed, you keep
Yes,
breaking, but I think we can try for the last time before we can find another way of getting in touch with you. Yes.
yes,
Is this
yes.
your first trip to Afghanistan?
Yes, indeed. My first trip to Afghanistan, South African delegation coming through to Kabul and visiting the various projects that African Muslim Agency is doing here in Kabul and in Afghanistan. Since the time that we've reached here, I mean, we've been welcomed by sort of a warm welcome by people that you can see are struggling. We're driving through the cities, we see the bleak, but yet the smiles are on the people's faces. And that for me is very, very heartwarming. We'll be here for a couple of days visiting the various projects that the African Muslim Agency is doing in the country.
And you mentioned that this is your first visit. Does what we see on the news, what we see online, kind of reflect in reality? Is that the lived realities of the people of Afghanistan? Is the situation as dire as we think of it to be and as we see it to be in the various media platforms?
It definitely is. If you look at the people living in the mountains of Kabul, if you look at the people within the city, you can see people are.
All right, we seem to be struggling there to hear Mohammed. I think we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, our technicians will try and figure a way to get in touch with them.
Here day by day. This is Salam Media. Rejuvenating media day by day.
The JNF, the Jewish National Fund, has been a part of the Zionist colonial project, not just in the past year since the 7th of October, but since before 1948. The JNF is the owner of record of much of the land that has been stolen from Palestinians throughout occupied Palestine from the river to the sea. And so the JNF has played a leading role in the colonization of Palestine, the theft of Palestinian land. This is what the JNF stands for. This has always been what it stood for. And so there's always been a really significant amount of pressure from grassroots activists demanding that, the JNF not be considered a charitable institution. And it should be noted that it's quite difficult to receive charitable status in Canada. And here the JNF is getting charitable status for colonizing Palestine and for stealing Palestinian land.
Charlotte Cates, the international coordinator of the Samidoun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network.
This is Salam Media.
The Israelis are blocking food into the area. The bombing of Lebanon and Syria. That is the story. And we must not get distracted by the antics of the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, the Cape One in this case, to divert us, to distract us, and to digress from the horror that is being committed, which they aid and abet, and in which they are complicit. The privileged classes in South Africa, which includes the South African Zionist Federation, are not the victims of hate speech. The victims of hate speech, especially if we go into 60 days of activism and violence, are those who have been disfranchised before, the blacks, the women, especially in rural areas, not the likes of the South African Zionist Federation or South African Jewish Board of Deputies as the gadgets. Their claims are patently false.
Professor Yusuf Chekte, he is in fact the PAC coordinator.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
It's high tension because yesterday the Mozambique police commander did a press conference saying that everyone should go to work, children should go to school, and he said that they are prepared to make sure that people don't protest. He repeated many times, enough with protests, enough with protests. He even compared protesters on 7 November as terrorists in Cabo Delgado. The tension is very high. Today, some of the cities, the day started is very different. Some stores are closed. Some companies, they are closed. Some schools are closed as well.
Sidia Chisongo, she's a Mozambique-based human rights activist.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity. Listen to something fresh.
Now the question is quite clear. This is not a foreigner problem. It's an issue that many miners that have the skills and many people that are poor, and of course there are elements that are suspect, have got into an area where the state has failed to close mines properly. I think there may be one closure certificate in the history of mine closures in this country, or recently I also read there maybe even be 10. Why is it so difficult to close mines? When the Minister Kombuza speaks the way she does, she must know the law. When you want a mine in this country, you go to do prospecting, you get a mining license, and you make sure what are the plans when the mine will close, what is the life of the mine, how will waste be dealt with. It starts before the mine starts. Now you come at the end of the day, when you have 6,100 ownerless and derelict mines, you start shooting the victims of this process. Where are the companies?
Hassan Lorgat, an activist, social justice activist.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity. Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. We're still joined by Mohamed Tahir Hamid. He's the operations manager at Africa Muslims Agency, and they're currently on the ground in Afghanistan. We are trying to get hold of him. I think it's understandable that the network won't be that great, but our technical team is trying very, very hard to make sure that we bring you, the latest out in Afghanistan and the kind of work that Africa Muslims Agency is doing. Very, very important work. Mohamed, are you back with us? Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I think two quick questions before I let you go, because we have unfortunately run out of time. African Muslims Agency has been active in Afghanistan for many years. Could you share with us, some of the projects that you guys are currently working on there, and how's the team adjusting, that South African delegation adjusting to being in those conditions and seeing firsthand the kind of impact that the work that Africa Muslims Agency has, because usually I'm sure they would be working on this from afar here in South Africa and not quite grasping the full effect that the work that you guys have on the people of Afghanistan.
Yes, Lalo. So currently in Afghanistan is winter and it is bitterly, bitterly cold. If you go into the areas just slightly out of Kabul and so on, into the mountainous areas, you see poverty at its highest. Homes that do not have windows, that cold getting in, families cannot afford blankets and to keep warm. So currently now, Africa Muslim Agency, one of the many projects that it does do is the winter rescue. And when I say rescue, it is actually rescuing a life. It's going out there giving wood, blankets, and heaters, as well as your mattresses. And this is one of the projects that we would like donors to contribute, because the cold gets to such a level that children actually lose their lives. We have water projects as bowls that we see children walking and getting water from very, very dirty sources, and that's not hygienic. And African Muslim Agency opening up boreholes in the various areas. So those are projects that can be supported. With feeding is a very critical, important point. With the poverty being what it is, the feeding programs help those that are in need to actually get some food. And with the Ramadan coming through, we look forward to all donors sponsoring towards feeding and having mercy on those orphans and widows that are around in Afghanistan. For those that have mercy on these people, God will have mercy on them. And not forgetting, lastly, the orphans. They are a huge amount of orphans and widows. 90% of the area has orphans and widows, and they do not have a means of sustaining themselves. And supporting an orphan is such a big reward, like So we encourage our donors and those that are out there to contribute now, before Ramadan, during Ramadan, and after, so that we can get maximum reward in benefiting not only ourselves, but these people that are in Afghanistan.
Definitely, and we're going to live on that note, Mohammed, and I'm sure we'll be keeping in touch with you in the not so distant future, because we've run out of time now. But I would like us, just to chat a bit more about Afghanistan itself, how you and the team are finding it. But I'm sure, our producers will make time, and we'll be able to chat to you even further. But we're going to leave it here for now. Jazakallah so much for chatting to us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That was Mohamed Tahir Hamid. He's the operations manager at Africa Muslims Agency. They're currently on the ground in Afghanistan. They're doing incredible work. As you mentioned, it's the winter now, and in the mountainous areas of Afghanistan and Kabul, it gets bitterly cold. So yeah, if you want to contribute, if you want to play your part in making sure that Africa Muslims Agency does continue doing the incredible work that they're doing, you can head out to their website, www.africamuslimsagency.co.za. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.